achieved.
Welcome back to Kamikaze Overdrive MMA Predictions. As always, I am your host, Scott Johnson, and on this edition of the show, we're taking a look at the upcoming UFC on Fuel TV Barao vs. McDonald event, which will take place on February 16th, 2013 from the UK, which means the time's going to be different, so make sure you check out what time it's showing in your area, and if you do miss it, you'll have to catch it on a rerun later in the evening. 6 main card predictions in all, and I'll get into them in a second. All preliminary predictions available over at kamikazeoverdrive.net. Now, I'm coming off a fairly unsuccessful UFC 156 event where I went 4-7. I did nail a couple of big upsets, picking Bigfoot, which I cut a lot of flack from a lot of people on here, and I also picked Damian Maia to win over John Fitch. People also gave me a hard time about that, but not as much as the Silva pick. Either I went 4-7. Most people did not have a good night. Some did, and I'm sure people will, let me know if they had a good night, and they always like to let me know those things. But what I'm going to say is the bet packs, I had one guy message me and said, thank you very much. He made a parlay of Bigfoot, Silva, Damian Maia, and my number one non-predicted winner pick, Little Nog. He made a ton of cash. I don't want to tell you how much he made, but off betting on those 3, the odds are ridiculous. He put a serious amount of cash down, and I'm going to say it was 4 digits at least. And that's the type of information you get from me. It's not just who I think is going to win, it's other people I think are good investments, and that's one thing. Definitely look into purchasing. I did combine my bet packs and made a $12 pack, which combined my $10 and $5 pack, saved you $3, gave you all the information I could possibly put together. I put a lot of work into these things. And yes, they don't always turn out, and that was the case with this event. What I'm going to offer you is if UFC on Fuel TV does not go well, and this is a tough thing for me to do because this is a very difficult card to predict, a lot of tough matchups. If this event does not go well, it's not a profitable event, I will send you the password for whatever bet pack you purchase the equal amount bet pack you purchase at this event. I will send that to you for UFC 157. So you buy the $12 bet pack for this event and we don't have a good night, I'll send you the bet pack for UFC 157 free. So it's a win-win. Either you get a free bet pack or you get a heck of a lot of cash in your pocket from this event. So please still consider buying them, and I hope you take a look, especially for some of the new people. Also on the website, lots of predictions from Ez Fidel and Josh Harper. Make sure you check them out in the prediction panel. The public pick section is available. Go in. I keep all the stats. You can go in and see how people are doing in different sections and look at things and maybe make some money and do some betting based on those trends as well. I've improved the ranking section on the website, so please check that out. Getting into a lot of stuff. Also, thank you very much to all of my sponsors, MMABettingOdds.com, WalkoutWear.com, MMACrips.com, HeartandGlory.com, new on the website, BoneSnapper.com, CouchFighter.co, and the list goes on and on. All of those links available over at the website. I've said enough. Also, the Walkout Wear, one last thing. The Walkout Wear 3 $10 gift prize packs. If you buy the bet pack and your name gets drawn, you get $10 credit at WalkoutWear.com to go and buy some of the new Round 5 figures. So please take a look into that. I'm rambling. 6 predictions. We got a lot to get into. Let's get her started. Our first prediction of the evening takes place in the UFC's welterweight division as beautiful Che Mills, 15-5-0 with 1 no contest, battles everyone's favorite Matthew Deepwater Riddles, 7-3-0 with 1 no contest as well. Che Mills is coming off a TKO victory over Dwayne Ludwig. It came as a result of an injury. Well, Matthew Riddle picked up a decision victory over John McGuire at UFC 154. Now, looking at this first, basically this what comes down to is you have a striker in Che Mills, a pure knockout artist in Che Mills, against Matthew Riddle, who's kind of I'd say he's almost well-rounded in that he can, use his striking, or he can take fights to the ground and use his wrestling. Statistically, Matt Riddle averages 3.36 takedowns per fight at 53%, so a pretty impressive completion rate. Mills, 33% takedown defensive rate, but that includes 2 for 2 by Rory McDonald, which is, will skew those numbers a little bit. Riddle's a purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and he has 0 wins by submission, but that's with an asterisk because he did submit Chris Clements before that fight was overturned. He's had some big takedown performances in his career so far, 4 against Lance Benoist, 4 against Greg Soto, and 4 against Nick Oshipshak. Now, Riddle went 5 for 9 in takedowns against Chris Clements, but he wanted to stand and trade with him, and he did the same thing with Henry Martinez. He wanted to stand and trade and war and really, put on an entertaining fight, and that really makes me question his fight IQ, and that's something he does not want to do with Che Mills because of Mills' power. Now, as I said, Rory McDonald went 2 for 2 on takedowns, leading a TKO finish, and if you can get Mills on his back consistently, he's at a disadvantage. He has 3 career losses by submission, so again, like I said, if Riddle can put him on his back, if he wants to put him on his back, that's to his benefit. And as I said, he has had problems with takedowns in the past, but against Jake Hesh in a fight prior to the UFC, he showed very good takedown defense, stuffing takedowns, getting back up when he did, and he will attack off his back, which is something to keep in mind as well if the fight does go to the ground. He has brutal knee strikes, and he works very well in the clinch if Riddle elects to try and close the distance. Mills, excellent power in his hands, 8 wins by knockout. And one thing with Riddle, he has a tendency to war with guys and throw down. He also has a tendency to throw punches without really thinking, and he likes to just walk forward and wing punches, and against Che Mills, he's going to get picked apart. Riddle has 100% of the tools to win this fight, but mentally, I don't know if he'll make the right choice. I think he's going to make the mistake of standing with Mills, and that's going to cost him. So my prediction is Che Mills to defeat Matthew Riddle by knockout. We move up to the 205-pound division for our next prediction. It's James Te-Huna, 17-5-0, battles Ryan the Big Deal Jimmo, 17-1-0. Te-Huna has won 3 in a row, including a decision win over Joey Beltran in his last performance, while Ryan Jimmo debuted in the UFC with an impressive 7-second knockout over Anthony Parash. Now, looking at Jimmo first, traditionally, he's a point fighter. He's not the KO artist we've seen in his debut. 7-second knockout was impressive for Anthony over Parash, but he's not the knockout artist everyone might believe him to be, or at least some people might believe him to be. He's a calculated fighter. He won't push the pace if he doesn't have to, and to me, he's a little bit too hesitant as he was in his final fight against Sokoudjou before he entered the UFC. He does a nice job of not deviating from his approach, and he likes to steal rounds with late action, especially in a tight round. And a lot of people, the judges are undecided as to who won the round. He will use feints, changes up his stance a lot of heavy low kicks, and a left jab right cross combination. When he knocked out Parash, he just flashed the left jab out there very quickly and came with that straight right, and that's all he needed to win that fight. Now again, going back to the Sokoudjou fight, he had a lot of trouble with Sokoudjou's physicality. A lot of people felt he lost that fight. I watched it. I felt he lost it as well. Sokoudjou was able to get him in the clinch, push him into the ropes in that fight, and Jimmo didn't have an answer for it in a lot of situations. Now, James Te-Huna, he's looking very good of late. The biggest knock on him is his conditioning issues, but he did look very good in the later stages against Joey Beltran despite some injuries. He landed 172 strikes in that fight, and that's very impressive and shows that he should be able to go the distance if so required. Now, one thing with Jimmo, again, I said he's a calculated fighter. He's not the type who's going to push Te-Huna and test that conditioning, or at least we haven't seen that yet. Te-Huna's only recent loss came against Alexander Gustafsson, which he looked very good early on, but again, as I said, he gassed out. 10 of his 15 wins are by knockout, including a 47-second knockout of Ricardo Romero, so he's also has dynamite in his hands. He uses a lot of upper body movement to striking, likes to flash out a left jab himself. Brutal right hand from distance, will throw some uppercuts. He hurt Joey Beltran with a left hook. Lots of kicks. He likes to use him as a rangefinder almost. And he'll also change levels and jab to the body, almost similar to Junior Dos Santos. He does a very nice job of cutting off the cage and closing in on his opponent, landing with big power as he does. He will close the gap and clinch where he'll deliver elbows, uppercuts, short punches, or he'll go for a takedown. Against Gustafsson, he landed an excellent lateral drop, and he looked very good in the ground, dropping ground and pound early on in that fight anyway. Now, he will overextend himself and get a little bit wild when the going gets going and he starts to really amp up the pace. But against Beltran, again, he showed a little more conservative side. He's kind of developing his fight game and his tendencies. Jimmo likes to fight at a controlled pace, and Te-Huna, the way he fights, he likes to start off slow and then pick up the pace, and he'll change speeds very quickly, which is impressive. And if he lands, he has the big power, and he has the ability to hurt guys, and he senses when to swarm and when to go for it. I think he should be able to overpower Jimmo here. So my prediction is James Te-Huna to defeat Ryan Jimmo by TKO. Back in the UFC's welterweight division, Gunnar Gunny Nelson 10-0-1 battles George the Sandman Santiago 23-10-0. Nelson's last fight was an official debut. He submitted to Marcus Johnson. Well, George Santiago, the last time we saw him, he was fighting in the UFC at middleweight, and it was a decision loss to Damian Maia. He has since won 2 in a row outside of the promotion. Now look at Gunnar Nelson first. He showed absolutely no jitters in his debut, which was very impressive. And this is his second appearance, so I really wonder how much better he will be. For Santiago, he's 1-4 in his prior 2 appearances in the promotion, or 2 runs. He's going to be desperate for a victory, and he needs to show it here since dropping down to welterweight. Now Nelson, he's a BJJ black belt, multi-time medalist at the World BJJ Championships. He also has a karate background and is very visible in his stance, almost Lyoto Machida-esque. My biggest concern is he holds his hands a little bit too low, which leaves him open for a guy with Santiago's power to put a hurting on him. Gunnar likes to throw some unorthodox kicks, and he'll punch and then close the distance and grapple. He does have 3 wins by knockout in his career, but of course submission. The submission game is his MO. Against Johnson, he tied up, and he immediately scored a takedown in that fight. Showed excellent transitions, moved into mount almost immediately. He did a nice job of rolling and reacting with Johnson. Every time DeMarcus tried to move or roll or counter, Gunnar would read, react, and control the position, eventually move to mount or back control and the rear naked choke. He has 9 first-round finishes as well, which is something to keep in mind because he's a very fast starter. Jorge Santiago, over his career, has not been a fast starter. He needs to avoid getting behind early. Now, Nelson will possibly be facing the best grappler he's ever faced in his career in Santiago, who's also a black belt. Santiago 2-0 since dropping to middleweight. But this, again, for him, this is his first big challenge at 170 pounds. He's faced 2 lower-level opponents, and he hasn't fought in 8 months, so a little bit of ring rust. He was involved in some Strikeforce cards that ended up not going anywhere, and he's taking this fight on short notice as well as an injury replacement for Justin Edwards. Now, Santiago has some big advantages in this fight. Huge experience advantage, both in quantity and quality. A height and reach advantage, so he'll have a size advantage he'll need to take advantage of as well. Over his career, 10 wins by knockout, 13 wins by sub. So he has a multitude of ways to finish this fight if he gets the opportunity. The big knock on him, 6 of his losses have come by a KO, so his chin is certainly in question. He's never been submitted, though, and that says a lot for some of the guys he has faced. I would expect Santiago's going to have a striking advantage. He has power in his hands, will throw some decent kicks. He has a tendency to get a little over-aggressive, which could lead to takedown opportunities for Nelson if he can capitalize on them. Now, Damian Maia, when he fought Santiago, went 4 for 11 on takedowns, but wasn't able to do much more other than get the position and maintain top control. Santiago was able to defend Maia on the ground, kept him in his guard, which was a pat on Santiago's back. But the biggest thing for George is he did not attack Maia off his back, and that's something he needs to do here to avoid getting behind in the scorecards. Now, in one of his 170-pound fights, he was taken down with relative ease early on, but he immediately capitalized and locked up a heel hook for the submission win, but he needs to avoid that against Gunnar Nelson. Nelson might not be able to submit him here, but I think he'll be able to score takedowns and maintain top control and pull off the victory, so my prediction is Gunnar Nelson to defeat Jorge Santiago by decision. Our next fight goes back to the 205-pound division as Jimi, the poster boy Manuwa, 12-0, battles Cyrille, the Snake Diabate, 28-3. Manuwa debuted with a dynamite TKO victory over Kyle Kingsbury, while Diabate has won 2 in a row, including a submission win over Chad Griggs. Now, between these two guys, they have combined for 19 wins by knockout, so there's a very good chance this fight is not going the distance. First things first, physically, Diabate has some major advantages. 4 inches of height, depending on where you look at for your stats, and a 5.5-inch reach advantage. And if this fight remains standing, which I expect it will, that's going to play a big role. Now, for Cyrille, 4 of his 8 losses have come by submission, but he hasn't lost by anything other than sub in his last 11 fights. That happened twice. He was submitted by Alexander Gustafsson and Anthony Parash. Both guys have grappling issues, there's no denying that, but Diabate is improving. He's coming up a submission win over Griggs, and against Tom DeBlanc, he showed much improvement on the ground, controlling his opponent and doing some damage. Diabate's a K1 level striker. He has excellent timing. We saw him catch Chad Griggs coming in and clip him and drop him. He uses his distance very well. Now, Diabate owns wins over other very good strikers, guys like Louise Kane and Steve Cantwell, who tried to stand with Diabate and just had no success. He uses long strikes, no wind-up, very nice combinations, power in his left hand, and he'll have a nice stepping knee that he can land as well, taking advantage of his height. Now, again, I said no success. That's incorrect. He did get rocked by a straight left from Louise Kane because he holds his hands a little bit too low for my liking. And against Alexander Gustafsson clipped him when he pressured him and came forward, and that's what guys need to do. They need to brawl the boxer and avoid a technical striking match with Diabate, and that's what Manuwa needs to do here. For Manuwa, he's a very relaxed striker, nice uppercut, brutal left hook, vicious body shots and kicks, brutal knees, especially as he's able to control the head. We saw him delivering some massive knee strikes to Kyle Kingsbury, leading to that finish. Now, he was wearing down against Kyle Kingsbury. That could be a combination of things, including the debut and the fact that it was a lot of grappling. He was on his back a number of times, having to defend there, something he's not used to having to do. Manuwa has serious power if he can land. 11 of his 12 wins have come by knockout, so Diabate needs to avoid getting in a slugfest and letting Manuwa get in range and land big shots. Now, for Jimi, he has never faced anyone on Diabate's striking level, and he doesn't have those tools to change his approach, his attack, if the striking isn't going well. He claims to have a good ground game. We haven't seen it. I don't expect to see him shooting a successful double on Cyrille Diabate. A lack of a decent ground game on Manuwa's part should allow Diabate to settle in and feel more comfortable with his striking. And I said Diabate's got an improving ground game, and we can actually see him use it in this fight, especially if it goes to the ground, if he's able to hurt Manuwa. What I expect here is we're going to see these guys stand and trade, and I'm going to go with Cyrille Diabate to defeat Jimi Manuwa by knockout. In the co-main event of the evening, we're in the UFC's Featherweight division in a fight that has title shot implications. Cub Swanson, 18-5, will battle Dustin the Diamond Poirier, 13-2-0. Swanson has won 3 fights in a row. Dustin Poirier is coming off a win over Jonathan Brookins. He had his multi-fight winning streak snapped by the Korean Zombie in the matchup prior to that one. Physically, Poirier has a height advantage and a reach advantage, but we've seen Cub Swanson take on tall guys like George Root, so I don't think that's going to be a major issue in this matchup. Both guys have a diverse finishing ability with multiple submission and knockout wins. Poirier has UFC submissions over Jonathan Brookins, Max Holloway, and Pablo Garza. Swanson's last 3 wins have all come by knockout over George Roop, Ross Pearson, and Charles Oliveira. On the negative side, Poirier was subbed by the Korean Zombie in that fight I just mentioned. Well, Cub Swanson coming off, he came back from an 11-month layoff and was submitted by Ricardo Lamas in a very interesting fight. Statistically, Poirier, edge in strikes landed per minute, 4.24 versus 3.34 for Cub, so both very active strikers. Switching things up, Swanson limits the damage to 2.5 strikes per minute compared to 3.14 for Poirier, so Poirier lands more, but he takes more damage. Now, looking at Dustin Poirier first, he was taking a lot of damage in the feet from guys like Max Holloway, Jason Young, and even Jonathan Brookins, and he was on the cage under pressure in that Brookins fight. He needed to score takedowns to change the flow of that fight, and that was a very interesting aspect. Now, against the Korean Zombie, he couldn't score takedowns as well, when things were going bad on his feet, as the Korean Zombie showed excellent takedown defense and was able to put Poirier on his back. Now, Dustin did sweep and have his moments where he had success, but for the most part, he couldn't, do what he wanted to do. Now, he was backing up when he was under pressure from the Korean Zombie. He was hurt a number of times along the cage, and he was getting overwhelmed by Jonathan Brookins, which Brookins is not a world beater when it comes to striking, and Poirier was having some issues there. Now, Jonathan also landed a big right hand in that matchup that caught Poirier, and that's something with Cub Swanson's power. You want to limit the number of times Cub can land on you with regularity. Now, Poirier does have power and is capable of scoring knockouts, but he hasn't scored one since WEC 52, 6 fights ago. So that's something to keep in mind. And he did hurt Brookins with a nice short jab left, and he throws some nice left and right combinations. And he will throw down and brawl. He's the type of guy who will just keep coming at you and doing his best to put pressure on you when he has the opportunity. Cub Swanson, on the other hand, has power in his hands. We saw him with a right hand put Roop and Charles Oliveira on their backside. He'll flash a quick jab. He has a good head movement. He will wade forward with big shots. He countered Pearson, KO'd him while he was moving backwards, which shows how much power he packs. He will try some high-risk maneuvers, throw some capoeira kicks, which will put him in bad positions. He did one against Ross Pearson, and Pearson ate it and then put Cub on his back, and he can't afford to do that in the matchup against Dustin Poirier and give up the position. Swanson showed decent takedown defense against George Roop. He was taken down by Pearson and Charles Oliveira, but he's able to get back up, and against Oliveira, that's not an easy feat. The way I look at this is going to be a close fight, and I'm looking forward to it very much. I was really looking forward to the Dennis Seaver Cub Swanson matchup, but Poirier, he's a great fighter, and it should be an excellent matchup. But with Dustin Poirier, he's a front runner, and the way I look at it is he's an excellent fighter when he's winning and he has an advantage and he's doing well. But when things aren't going his way, he's not nearly as effective, and he has problems executing when he's up against it. I think Cub Swanson will pressure him. Should be able to defend the takedowns, and he has big-time power, so my prediction is Cub Swanson to defeat Dustin Poirier by TKO. We now move to our main event as the interim Bantamweight title will be on the line as the champion Renan Barao, 31-1-0 with 1 no contest, battles Michael Mayday McDonald, 15-1-0. Dominic Cruz will be watching on with interest as he looks forward to who he potentially could be facing whenever he eventually comes back from injury. Renan Barao, 6-0 under the Zuffa banner, 2-0 in the WEC, 4 straight wins in the UFC, including knocking off Uriah Faber, Scott Jorgensen, Brad Pickett, and Cole Escobedo, and Chris Carriasso back in the WEC. Impressive resume. Lost the first fight of his professional career, has gone undefeated, 29 wins and 1 draw in his 30 fights since, 1 no contest in his 30 fights since that original loss. Michael Mayday McDonald, also an impressive resume. He's currently riding a 8-fight winning streak, coming off a knockout win over Miguel Torres. Prior to that, wins over Alex Soto, Chris Carriasso, Edwin Figueroa, also Cole Escobedo. Cole Escobedo, the lone man to ever defeat Mayday McDonald. So certainly, McDonald, young guy, very young guy, but far from a newcomer to the sport. As far he's taken on some high-level competition as well. Looking at McDonald first, he is a very good striker. Overwhelming combinations, big-time knockout powers we saw with the Torres fight and the Soto fight. 9 wins by knockout in total. He does an excellent job of rolling with his opponent's punches. He has good timing. He will throw counter strikes, good hand position, moves away very well, and constantly resets. He looks like a veteran fighter despite his age. In the Torres fight, he moved his head exceptionally well to avoid Torres' strikes while landing his own, and that really led to the knockout, eventually hurting him with a combination, finished him with an uppercut, and against Soto, he had a right hand and flurried for the finish. He is dangerous. If he lands, you are in trouble. Now, he did get tagged by a head kick in the Figueroa fight, and he had some trouble with Chris Carriazo also landing some leg kicks in that fight. And Carriazo had some success countering in that matchup as well, but again, that was a couple years ago, and McDonald has developed since then. And again, Carriazo had success overall with leg kicks, and I talk about that because Renan Barao is dangerous, and we'll talk about him when he's able to land his leg strikes with regularity. McDonald has good takedowns. He will attempt subs from both top and bottom. He's a BJJ brown belt, so a well-rounded fighter. Against Carriazo, he landed a nice double leg, but he has to be careful. Carriazo countered into omoplata, and Barao is a dangerous fighter on the ground, capable of submissions. Renan Barao, knockout power. He actually has more submissions than he does knockout wins, which is something to keep in mind. He throws a lot of kicks. Nova and Yao guy, just like Jose Aldo. Dangerous with his kicks. Likes to punish that lead leg. He did it against Faber and he did it against Jorgensen. He brawled with Pickett and he landed big strikes, eventually leading to the finish there. He threw some nice straight punches. He really likes to use his reach well. He rocked Pickett with a stepping knee, hurt him with a series of punches, and eventually led to the finish on the mat. He managed his distance very well. Did it against Scott Jorgensen and Uriah Faber, who was constantly coming up short with his punches and really had no answer for getting inside the distance. He does this with a stiff jab. He throws a lot of counters, uses those kicks as well, and he has a reach advantage in most of his fights, and he does it effectively. He moves away very well. Every time Uriah Faber would come in and push the pace, Barao would just back up and land combinations and move out of harm and do some damage in his zone, and kept Faber moving backwards. At the end of that fight, he was extending his hand, keeping Faber out of range, and basically saying, you can't get inside this hand. Every time Faber did, he was nowhere near, and then Barao would land his own punches. Again, he just like Aldo, he used kicks to take away Faber's push, and that was impressive. Faber had no forward push for a takedown or just closing the distance, and that's one thing Barao's going to look to do against McDonald in this fight. He has excellent takedown defense against two very good wrestlers in Scott Jorgensen and Uriah Faber. They want to combine 0 for 13 on their attempts, and that's something, if McDonald looks to change things up, will he be able to get the fight to the ground? So far, no one's done it with success against Barao. He himself is very good on the ground. We saw him take Brad Pickett's back. He sliced through Scott Jorgensen's guard. He's a black belt. He scored 6 takedowns against Cole Escovedo, so he can go on the offensive with his grappling. It's not just to take advantage of a position. He can go out and look to take guys down and use that grappling edge. Against Faber and Jorgensen, he neutralized their offense. They weren't exciting fights, but he had neutralized his opponent's ability to do damage and landed his own strikes. Against Pickett pushed him, and he was being pushed back a little bit in that matchup. But Pickett was a little bit too wild, and he didn't have a lot of head movement, which allowed Barao to see where he was coming, time, and land those big shots and eventually land that knee. And Pickett had a shorter reach of 2 inches. And that's one thing I looked at with the stats. Other than Cole Escovedo, who Barao used takedowns against, Barao has never faced an opponent, at least in the UFC or the WEC, that was the same height as him or taller with a reach advantage greater or equal. McDonald's same reach, but he's going to have 3 inches of height, which will equate to some distance. McDonald needs to use his footwork and head movement along with his 3 inches of height to get inside and do damage. He has the power to knock him out when he lands, and he has the ability to push the pace and really force Barao to fight a fight he's not comfortable with. He'll need to be careful to avoid getting timed as he moved in, but I actually think Michael McDonald has the tools to win this fight, especially the size. So my prediction is Michael McDonald to defeat Renan Barao by knockout and become the youngest UFC champion and the new UFC interim Bantamweight champ. So those are my 6 main card predictions for the upcoming UFC on Fuel TV event. My 6 preliminary breakdowns will be available over at kamikazeoverdrive.net. Also at the website, Ez Fidel and Josh Harper will be giving their predictions in the prediction panel. And also, Josh Harper's been doing a nice job of breaking down the Bellator fights. He went 5-0 in the last main card of the 5 televised bouts for Bellator 88. So make sure you check those fights out, his predictions out at the website. Also, the public pick section is available. Go in, make your predictions. I've done all the stats. Check them out, please. I've also worked very hard to improve the ranking system on my website, so you can check out the UFC ranking, see where I think each fighter is situated and should be. And, of course, as I said before, the betting packs. If you buy a betting pack for this event and I don't have a profitable evening, I'm going to send you that equal bet pack for the next event absolutely free. So you're either going to walk away with some cash in your pocket from a successful night or a free bet pack down the road. Make sure you check them out. Lots of MMA on the horizon. Kamikaze Overdrive MMA predictions. As always, thank you very much for tuning in, and I'll see you back here next time.